served at OPNAV 52. He's commanded Desert 31, Chung Hoon, and SWAS. Other experience include multiple float tours on amphibs, cruisers, destroyers, as well as 3 tours in OPNAV, Purse 41, PACOM, and at OLA. Ladies and gentlemen, Rear Admiral Dave Welch.
Thanks, Admiral. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak to you and give you an update on our command, one of the newer commands, and one that's very important to deliver on what Admiral Alexander talked about. And I'm going to take a cue off of him and start with a wee bit of history, because I think it's important for context for what we're doing at Surface and Mine Warfighting Development Center. In World War II, air-to-air combat, the kill ratio for the U.S. Navy was 14-1. In the Korean War, that fell off slightly. It was 12-1. And then in the Vietnam War, in the skies over the Gulf of Tonkin and Vietnam, that kill ratio had dropped to 3.75-1. And that caused CNO Moorer at the time to commission a group of aviators to go look at the causes for why that happened. That report, that commission produced something known as the ALT report. It was the ALT commission, led by a Navy captain. There were a lot of results that came from that, but 2 that I want to focus on in particular. Number 1, it was determined that from the time, in the skies over Vietnam, the commanding officers of squadrons were all Korean War veterans. They had flown in combat, they had combat experience. And perhaps very importantly, they were still flying the tactics that they had learned in Korea. But in the skies over Vietnam, there was a new generation of technology. We were flying more jet aircraft with better sensors, longer range weapons, and just as importantly, our adversaries also brought better platforms and better weapons and improved tactics to the fight. And yet we're fighting the same fight over Korea. And one of the determinations of the ALT report is we need to develop a capability to put in the hands of operators an exquisite understanding of the technology, the sensors, the weapons, and we need to let those young, the best fighters that we have, then develop the tactics. And so we have to have a schoolhouse where we can do that. That was the origin of Top Gun. Top Gun began on March 3rd, 1969. That was the date of inception, right out here at Miramar. Now, that wasn't the end of it for naval aviation, and in fact, it took several decades to bring that type of thinking to other warfare areas and mission areas. Strike University in the mid-'80s, Top Dome, the Seahawk syllabus that's now in place. And so now carrier-based aviation has this entire syllabus that they create and this model where they bring the best pilots from the fleet and they teach them the most advanced tactics. They give them that opportunity to learn and study, in some cases develop new tactics, and then they go back to the fleet and they infuse what they've learned and what they've developed, and they infuse that back in the fleet. That's what they call a weapons tactics instructor. We took a page from that 4 years ago when we started the Surface and Mine Warfighting Development Center. I would just say when we stood up, at the time, another, I think, critical decision or question was asked is, okay, we're going to do this in surface warfare. Why don't we do this in other communities as well? So we have warfighting development centers for surface and mines, which is what I am privileged to command. We've transitioned Top Gun, and now that's the Naval Aviation WDC. We have an underwater WDC, and a Navy Information WDC, and an Expeditionary WDC. I've got 4 counterparts, and all 5 of us work very closely together with NWDC to deliver advanced TTP. We took another page from the ALT report, and we took another lesson learned from naval aviation, and we have now created WITIs. We call them warfare tactics instructors. So instead of learning by type model series, we teach our young men and women based upon a warfare area. We produce 3 types of WITIs: amphibious WITIs, integrated air and missile defense WITIs, and surface and ASW WITIs. I'll talk more about how we produce them. But everything that I'm going to talk about here and what we're doing and what we've accomplished in the first 4 years of SMITIC is on the backs, or the foundation of what we do are those WITIs. And I am convinced this is one of the seminal changes in our community. And it has the potential, and I think it's starting to deliver, a fundamental change, a cultural change in our community, and I'll talk some about that. Next slide, please. Okay, we've done a lot, and I'll make this available to you, but all that to say is that's a busy slide because we're very busy. Jim Kilby stood up here 4 years ago, and when we started SMIDC, by the way, I'm all about standards, standardization in the training we deliver, so this is interoperative. Say it with me. It's pronounced SMIDC. SMIDC. The N is silent, and there's no SH in there. It's not SMIDC, and it's not NSMIDC or SMIDC. It's SMIDC. Okay? So you've all got that little taste of standardization for us. From the time Jim Kilby started with one room right over here across the street and about 5 other officers, we have grown and we continue to grow. Today I am privileged to command a command that has about 350 people as part of it. We are growing to our designated end strength of 545. Said differently, we're at about 60% of what we see as our total end strength when we get there. So my number one issue, as you look at all the things that go on at SMIDC today, is capacity. We are in very high demand. Thanks to the great work of Jim Kilby and John Wade, my immediate predecessor, the brand equity of SMIDC is quite high. And everywhere I go, the question is, what are you going to do for us? And what are you doing for us? And when can you get to us? I get on a plane on Saturday and I get to go see Admiral Sawyer. And that's one of the questions. He's already said, heads up, Dave, I want you to come talk to me about my advanced training entitlement and how you're going to deliver on that capability. So we're quite busy. Next slide. And as a result, though, those WIDIs, we're not at full production yet. Okay? We currently have 241 WIDIs that have been trained. That's in 3 years. So we're doing quite well. The selection rate's 88% to get into the program. The pass rate's not 100%. They have to pass the training once they get into it. That course of instruction lasts anywhere between 15 and 19 weeks, depending on which variant of WIDI they are. The amphib WIDIs are taught in Little Creek, Virginia, but in their course of instruction, they spend a full week down at Camp Lejeune, and they spend a week up at Wallops Island learning SSDS. So they get some time on the host combat system model, and they spend time with their counterparts at the MU level down in Camp Lejeune. Integrated Air and Missile Defense spends a week in Fallon at Nautic working with their aviation counterparts. And we also have WIDIs, once they're through production, not just at SMIDC. SMIDC is where the majority of our production tours are located, and I'll talk about what we do in that production in a moment, but we also place WIDIs throughout the training enterprise. They're on the podium at SWAS. They're at the Center for Surface Combat Systems. They are at ATG doing unit level training so that we can anticipate and have a smooth handoff in that transition from basic phase to our advanced phase training. We've got some at the carrier training strike groups. I have 3 WIDIs permanently assigned in Fallon at Nautic, and I've got a couple at UWDC. So we've got a partnership with our WDCs. We've spread the WIDI Nation around, and that network that has been created is vital as we learn more quickly and deliver again on what Admiral Alexander describes. That's another really busy slide. It doesn't project well. There's a red line in the center of it. This is to tell you all that we track very carefully where each and every one of our WIDIs is in production. We have 117 in actual production right now, and we have to be very careful that we don't overburden and overtask them. So as we grow to our full capacity, there are times I go to different folks who come and ask for support, and I have to say, I can't give you the full amount that I'd like to, or I can't support that yet, because we've got a prioritized list of requirements. What are those? Our mission is very straightforward. Our mission, single-minded, and I love a concise mission statement, it's to increase lethality and tactical proficiency in the surface force, period. If it doesn't relate to those 2 things, then that's something we're not engaged in. That is our focus. We have 4 lines of operations to deliver on that mission. Go to the next slide. Keep building through that slide and go to the next one. Go one more. I'm missing a slide. Sorry. Throw me off just a little bit here. Let me talk about my 4 lines of operation. First is advanced tactical training. WITIs are at the backbone of that. The primary event that we conduct is called SWAT, Surface Warfare Advanced Tactical Training. What is that? You heard Admiral Alexander talk about the basic phase entitlement, advanced phase, and integrated phase. We live in the advanced phase. We take a ship or group of ships that have completed basic phase training, and ideally they have all completed their basic phase training entitlement, and we prepare them to operate as a group. We are not a certification event. We are a training event. It's interesting, classic surface warfare and talking about changing the mentality. As we start to embark on this, we get a lot of SWOs who come and go, okay, how do I do better? How do I ace SWAT? How do I come out of the blocks and just nail it? That's not the purpose of SWAT. It starts with a 5-day import academic exercise where we sit down and review the TTP with the tactical watch standards. While we're doing that, we're doing a C5I fast cruise to make sure the gear is ready to go. Then we take in all lines and we get underway with WITIs and post-command commanders embarked on all the ships. And we go out, and for a crew des SWAT, which includes the DESRON and the warfare commanders, we go out and do 16 days at sea, and it's reps and sets. And it's not 24 hours a day. It's not running around with our hair on fire trying to catch our breath for the first 7 to 10 days at sea. We have a morning training period, an afternoon training period, and evening debrief period. Through the night, typically we use our naval information warfare counterparts, and they run those type of exercises through the night. But let me give you an example. We want to conduct a defensive ASW exercise and teach the entire group the proper tactic for torpedo evasion. We will come on board in the academic phase or bring everybody ashore. We'll train to that and many other areas. I'm using this as an example. Then when we get underway, we'll do a basic scenario. It's a live scenario. We'll brief that scenario. Or actually, they'll plan the scenario. And the ships and warfare commanders will plan the scenario based on the TTP, based on their op tasks if they've developed them at that point. Then they'll brief it. Then we will execute it. Then we will pause in that night and we will come back and debrief it. But we won't just sit around and go, okay, SAT, okay, SAT, okay, SAT, okay, SAT, okay, let's go on and do the next event. We will debrief in detail. We use event cards, we use WITI observations, and we use data playback. Tactical playback and voice playback, so we can get down to, well, you said, or you thought you said this, let's roll the tape, what did you really order? Play that back, give the objective feedback, and then we pause. And you get a chance to go learn from that. And then you get to plan it again, brief it again, and a couple of days later, we'll run another scenario. It'll be a little more complex this time. So we kind of go crawl, walk, run. Lather, rinse, repeat. We keep doing that throughout the 16 days underway. ASW, ASUW, air defense, information warfare. We do this across all the areas. So now our aim is to deliver a ship that's developed good tactical habits ready for group sail and integrated training. So instead of taking a ship that has just gotten through the basic phase and slamming them out of the op area for Comp 2X, they are ready. What we're trying to deliver as we deliver that capability are the metrics, the quantifiable measures that show you started at this level, you are now at this level. We provide that feedback by mission area to the training audience. We go back to the ships, we go back to the commodores, to the commanding officers, and we tell them, okay, by warfare area, you completed all of these advanced exercises. We use the same terminology that's used in Comp 2X that the carrier training strike groups use. We try to use the same metrics. We're merging with them, and we deliver that feedback directly to them. This is what you're good at. You need to sustain this as you continue to train. Here are the areas you need to continue to work on, or you didn't quite meet or will be struggle to meet certification requirements. We give them that feedback. We also give a handoff brief to the carrier training strike group. Here's what you're going to get. And they've got an observer or two watching us, and then we embark WITIs, a couple who help in the Comp 2X phase. And really, again, we're not a certification event, but Admiral Whitesell at Strike Group 4 and Admiral Byrne at Strike Group 15, they're grading our homework. They're giving us feedback on the value that we've produced. I can tell you anecdotally from talking to ship CEOs and Commodores, I had one of the destroyer skippers that went through the last SWAT event out here, and I said, so how'd it go? And he said, don't tell anybody, but group sale was easy, because we were already on step, and we had the planning rhythm, the briefing rhythm, and the debrief really helped us elevate our game. So that brought tremendous value. One other great incident, we don't always learn from success. We did an East Coast SWAT recently, the first one. Chris was the senior observer. The big deck that was out there, the first time we did defensive torpedo evasion, we get to execution, it's briefed perfectly, and as soon as we execute and we disclose the threat, the ship turns the wrong direction. And as second as the rudder goes open, the captain of the ship recognizes, damn, my ship's turned the wrong direction. And we were actually ready to go, well, do you want us to stop and reset this? He goes, no, let the problem run. We're safe in the turn right now, and my crew's going to learn a lot more and learn faster with a good debrief of this event. And that's exactly what happened. They were able, starting with the captain, to do that objective debrief, deconstruct, then reconstruct, plan, brief, go out and execute. They nailed it the second time through, and from that point on. That's the value of what we bring to this. That's advanced tactical training. Beyond SWAT, we also do, and we took over a couple of years, live fire missile X's, live fire with a purpose. So our integrated air missile defense team goes out and conducts these events. At the challenge, at the charter, at the behest, dare I say, the demand of Admiral Alexander, and now Admiral Lewis, they want more threat representative scenarios. So this isn't just an off-the-shelf, let's do a canned shot and call it success. You know, think unqueued, think multi-axis, think high threats with high advanced capabilities. As an aside note, one of the benefits of having stood up this organization as a WDC is we now become an advocate for warfighter improvement processes, and we can do it based on quantifiable metrics. What do I mean by that? We're now advocates for better ranges, better target sets that better define the threat with the capabilities, telemetered rounds that allow us to get to better fidelity in data reduction and debrief capability. And we're finding traction because we can actually show, we can take training to this point, but from this point on. And by the way, there is also a significant effort involved in the live virtual construct that Admiral Alexander involved as well. We're defining what we need to deliver this advanced training. That's all under our first line of operation. Second line of operation is doctrine. We're responsible under NWDC for 137 pieces of doctrine. We own 40% of the tactical library. In the first 4 years, we've updated 60 pieces of doctrine. So we're working through a backlog. I will tell you the number 137, that denominator changes and adjusts. As the Whitties get to some doctrine, they're able to combine it with others. Sometimes they're able to retire it. In some cases, we find we got to write something totally new that's not on the shelves based on new capability that's coming. So we're working our way through a backlog, but our number one priority in terms of doctrine is that as we deliver a new capability, we deliver the TTP with that. So Whitties are engaged. We had a question this morning over in the auditorium with a group. What's our engagement with industry? Whitties are heavily engaged with industry counterparts, with NAVC, with the systems commands, with the acquisition. So we know when something's going to be delivered, what are the characteristics of what we're going to deliver, and actually going out and talking to the engineers that design it. So when an officer becomes a Whittie, we don't just immediately put them on a podium somewhere or send them ashore to do training. After they get their patch, after they get through training, we give them an area of expertise. And it's within that warfare area, but it's more tailored than that. So you're going to become the expert on SM2. You're going to become the expert on advanced gun weapon systems. And we give them the time and the opportunity to go meet the people that build the system, that design the system, so they understand the system. So as they begin to think about TTP and how they're going to train to that, they've got that exquisite level of knowledge. So that's our second area of focus, and it's pretty significant for us. The third area is operational support, and I'll just say across our different warfare areas and our 4 divisions, we support a lot of reach-back requests for support from the fleet. We're not replacing fleet capability, but we're there to provide that key interface. And in many cases, either that reach-back comes from a WITI who's out there forward, or it's from some other operational level, and they're just reaching back to us and saying, hey, I need your support in this area. Integrated Air Missile Defense in Dahlgren, Virginia, fields about 200 requests a year from numbered fleet commands regarding operational planning concerns and stationing concerns related to air defense and missile defense. Our Mine Warfare Division regularly engages at the CTF level to make sure we've got updated planning folders in the event we have to execute mine countermeasures operations. And our ASW and ASUW division, they're kind of newest to this game, but we've actually had some reach-back support and occasionally a request to send folks out into the fleet, either to conduct training on a particular new capability or to actually embark and help as a ship is conducting an operation. And again, the value there, if that WITI on station doesn't know the answer, they can reach back to WITI Nation and say, I need some help. I need some help on the process to properly configure the SQQ-89 AV-15 to maximize the processing capability. There's a WITI at a desk who goes, oh yeah, I wrote the TTP on that, here it is, and oh, by the way, here's the pages out of the tech manual. This is what you need. We do that very, very quickly. Last area we're engaged in is experimentation, capabilities, and definition of what our gaps are. So we now lead the warfighter improvement process in those 4 warfare areas: amphibious warfare, mine warfare, integrated air missile defense, and surface and ASUW. We produce an integrated priority capabilities list, and from that, we feed into different experiments. We are engaged on a regular basis. That's a growth area for us as well. I would tell you right now, going forward, we're going to develop kind of a master experimentation plan, if you will, but it's going to be drawn directly from our IPCLs that we've written and the identified gaps that we have. This summer, about 2 months ago, we went out and participated. NWDC sponsored some experiments looking at counter-UAS. Some of the experimented systems came directly from industry. Some of them came from ideas that we had, but we actually were able to go to sea. We were able to request forces and go to sea with ships and aircrafts and run a number of experiments. There were 14 overall in this particular set of experiments. 6 of them were SMITIC exercises. So we're engaged on a regular basis. We found some success in some of those experiments that is now in draft as TTP. I'll give you one other example where this is an operation. This is more under operational support and advanced tactical training. Many of you are familiar with the Submarine Commander's Course. I will tell you that I was a commanding officer of a destroyer. I was tasked to do this, and I went out as a sitting duck. I went out, I went on a pre-planned course, and I really wasn't an active participant in that. Surface side, led by SMITIC and led by a DESRON, is now an active participant in this. It's a UWDC SMITIC effort, and we both benefit from it because the DESRON's able to bring planning to this, we bring training to this, and then the ship goes out and they're trained and they're alerted and they're prepared, and we get so much out of it. And the latest one we did, we actually had an event that we had to hit pause and go, okay, something's there with our procedures. Within 90 days, we had an updated firing point procedure, an updated TAC memo, an updated urgent TAC bull that went out to the fleet, and we got it out 23 days before the next event. We went out and trained that ship, which is executing that event right now as I speak. But beyond that, it goes into our syllabus, and we're training the whole fleet. That's rapid learning. That's taking what tacticians learn and infusing that right back into the tactic and in the training we deliver to our WITIs and to the fleet. I've talked about 3 flavors of WITI. One of the last things I'll tell you is that next year we stand up our 4th version of a WITI. It's mine warfare. We're going to start by producing 5 next year. That'll be the first time we do this. We are going to use the training that is available at NATO because that is the standard for mine warfare. So we're going to send 5 candidates over to Ostend, Belgium, and they're going to complete the MIW PWO course, and they're going to complete a NATO Staff Planning Officer course, in addition to some additional training back here. I briefed this to retired admirals on Monday, and I had a stack of applications when I finished the brief. I was like, Belgium? That sounds fantastic, and a chance to develop this expertise. And we've got a lot of interest in that area, and it's an area that needs a significant amount of attention. One of the other hats I wear is I'm the Global Mine Warfare Commander. We maintain a battle staff ready to deploy on 96 hours notice, and I am really excited to get that level of expertise, not just in my staff, but in subordinate operational staffs and out on the decks of our ships. What do we need to do going forward? That first line there is a note, and I have advocated for, and it's been heard by our fleet commanders. This is new. This advanced training and SWAT is new, and it needs to be codified into our OFRP instructions and our fleet training continuum. That has happened. It's written in the draft. I'm waiting for the ink to dry. But the good news is they're now scheduling this as a standard event for us going forward. We do, again, 6 days, 5 days in port, 16 days at sea for crew days. Amphib ships get 5 days in port. They get 10 days underway. That's devoted largely and focused largely on sea control exercise. And then we transitioned into PMINT, where they integrate with the green team. And we provide amphib widdies to help support that as well, that transition. Our goal is to, again, to deliver ships and crews that have developed good training habits and who are ready to integrate at the force level. What am I looking for? There are a number of folks here in uniform and out of uniform. Many of you, even those out in uniform, continue to mentor those who are in uniform. I solicit your support and advocacy for the Warfare Tactics Instructor Program. The rigor that we bring to this, I think, is a significant cultural change to our community. In the generations that many of us grew up in the United States Navy, we developed some tactical experts. There are absolutely some air defense experts, some mine warfare experts. There are some amphib gurus out there. There are some ASW experts. I submit that most of those people develop that expertise by personal initiative, perhaps often fighting a system that wanted to make them a generalist or spread them out and say, no, 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 you did one tour there, I need you to go do something else. We are now being deliberate in the development of tactical expertise. Don't take my word for it. There are some widdies who are gathered around here. Seek them out. There's a couple sitting right here. More, stand up for a second. If they're in the working uniform, you'll see a patch right there, and she is an ASW, ASUW widdy. I come to work every single day, whether it's here or at one of our other divisions, and I walk in the room confident I am not the smartest person in the room. And I've got a lot to learn, and I'm learning a ton from these young officers who have the passion and now have been given the time and the permission to go develop and cultivate this level of knowledge. It's pretty exciting when you think about that. If you're looking around at junior officers in the wardroom, I'd ask you to find those who have a particular passion in this area, but also have the characteristics we're looking for. We want somebody who's humble, who's teachable, who brings credibility, so they're credible and approachable, and that's important to us. We aspire to be an elite organization. Can't say that we're there yet after 4 years. We aspire to be elite, but elite does not mean elitist. And the humility part's important. We're not out here with information, the great information that no one else has. We want to share that with the fleet. We want to improve lethality and tactical proficiency throughout the fleet. I could go on. I've learned so much in the 3 months I've been here, and I'm really excited about this opportunity and where our community is going and the significant step that we've taken here. But let me pause here and see what questions you have for me. Hi, Rick. Good to see you.
So, unfortunately, I wasn't the beneficiary of the WITI program when I was on that.
Grab the mic, so.
Unfortunately, I was not the beneficiary of the WITI program when I was on active duty, but I am a huge proponent of it. But my question for you is two parts. First, from an infrastructure perspective, mission planning, mission rehearsal, trainers, live virtual construction, but the right fidelity, are we where we need to be in the tools for the Whitties to really do their job and then bring it end-to-end life cycle to the ships?
I won't say we are there today, but we have a plan, and I have seen some of the stuff that's been delivered as part of that plan, and it's exciting. So I'm confident we're moving in the right direction. I'd love if we got there faster.
So you're confident that in the Navy, Surface Navy's vision, that plan piece is in place, or it is going into place? Because
Okay.
I think that's critical to the vision of whether we're going to get to where we need to be in training that really takes full advantage of what the Whitties have. And then my other question is this is all great, but it's all positive, and maybe it is all positive. What do you see as, you know, really the next steps in the evolution?
Okay. First one, yes, I'm confident we have a plan. But that plan will change, and I think it will get better. So I'm confident of the plan we have today. There's a combined integrated air missile defense and ASW trainer that has been built and is in beta testing right now over in my headquarters building. And it's Aegis and SQQ-89 AV-15 in a virtual environment with the right fidelity on environmentals. Don't talk to me. They are chomping at the bit to get into that trainer. They deliver in the next couple months. They're down for a couple of months of beta. They've done their beta testing. They're training trainers right now. I was in there with the CSCS staff as they were going through some training modules, and then we're going to start delivering on that. The potential that comes with that to virtualize a combat system. Holy cow, that's phenomenal. Hopefully you heard Ron Boxall talk a little bit about that. That's jazzes me, but the chance that they're going to be sitting 20 feet away and be able to walk over and do reps and sets and experiment with the combat system regarding TTP development, that's fantastic. The second half of your question, you're right, this is a positive pitch. Where do we go from here, or what do we have to deal with? I'd say the number one issue we have to deal with in our community is something I call the intransigent middle. What do I mean by that? And forgive me, I'm not prejudging, but for those of you out here who are like me or 05, 06 level, and you grew up in a time frame where we didn't have this, I will tell you anecdotally, once or twice, my young lieutenants have showed up on a ship to deliver training, the latest TTP, and the first thing that happens is the captain of the ship comes up and goes, "Why are you here? And who sent you? Who said I needed help?" Well, I'm here to deliver training, and it's only to you. We have something, we have improved TTP, and we want to share that knowledge with you. We, as a result of some work that went on post-events in the Red Sea a couple of years, we've developed some updated TTP. Includes threat-centric planning for how you configure your sensors. And we've delivered that to the fleet. It becomes part of that 5-day academic training, and then when we go to sea and we look at the configuration of the system, and it doesn't match what we've trained to, and we go to STO and say, "STO, why have you used threat-centric planning?" And the answer is, "It's my 4th sea tour. I don't need a new TTP to tell me how to run that." Go back to how I started. It's a new generation. There are new threats. There's a new operating environment. The old tactics will not do. We have entered an era of great power competition. Right? Most of my career, we were able to overcome any potential threat by sheer numbers and certainly by technology. That advantage is quickly evaporating. And if we don't get to honing our tactical edge, then that's a huge danger. So the intransigent middle is the biggest thing. That's, again, why I solicit your support. Whether you're in uniform or not when you meet the Whitties, don't follow what they say blindly. Don't trust it blindly. Test them. And again, I think you'll find that they've had the rigor behind the training. It's not just fluff and PowerPoint. They've spent some time to deeply learn and understand our systems, our capability, our vulnerabilities, and they're developing those tactics to go with it. Did I get to your question? Next question. Do we have time for another one? Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you for your update, Admiral Neil Zerbe, Aerospace and Defense Industry Partners. I work heavily in the world of unmanned surface and unmanned undersea vehicles, and in a fleet that's rode hard and put away wet, I see those as force multipliers for the fleet. How much do your Whitties get training in that domain and bringing that next generation of capability to the surface fleet?
I won't say that we're to the place where I want us to be in terms of the level of training. I view that as one of those areas of expertise, that subject matter expertise within a warfare area that we're going to cultivate. So one of these young officers is going to earn the patch, going to go into production, and we're going to tell them your area of expertise is unmanned systems or unmanned surface systems. And then they work that very, very deeply. We are deeply engaged in terms of experimentation. Often we're able to do experiments on top of what we do when we go out and do SWAT, or we're part of the fleet exercise or fleet experiments that are going on, or joint experiments that are going on. So we'll see opportunity and we'll add a rider, if you will, or we'll bring a technology or a capability that we want to add to. So I think we're poised to do more. I think that's one of the primary purposes of a warfighting development center. We're kind of at that nexus of delivering advanced tactical training, which just allows us to see we got some gaps here, or we've got a new technology or capability, and we've got to go exploit that. I talked about capacity and not overburdening the Whitties. I think one of the most powerful things we can do is give these young men and women time to think. Expose them to technologies like that, capabilities like that. They know what the gaps are, and when you give somebody who's had that kind of resources at their fingertips, they come up with stuff we can't even imagine. That's exciting about this too. So when I talk about capacity, one's immediate. I want every one of these lieutenants to go to department head school and go back to the fleet. That's how we're going to infuse this change in culture throughout the fleet. When they show up at department head school and for a department head tour, I don't want them burned out. So they've got to have some balance in their lives. But I also want to give them a little bit of reserve to think. Part of being a Whittie, we tell them thinker, teacher, warrior. So if we're so busy they don't have time to think, we're not going to come up with some of those exquisite solutions. And they've already proven when you give them that, they do produce. Anybody else? All right, Chris, can I yield back the balance of my time? Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.